Waterford had won only one qualifier game since 2001, and that was against London in 2011. And they were the big underdogs as they headed to a damp Salt Hill to face Galway, who hadn't exactly impressed in their opening qualifier win over Tipperary last weekend. But 3 minutes in, Galway were ahead. It took a while for Michael Meehan to get control of the ball and then get around Thomas O'Gorman, but he opened his account with an excellent score from a tight angle. Meehan added a second point to put Galway 2 up, and he appeared to score a third when his high-hanging ball bounced between Mark Hare and Danny Cummins and then up and over the crossbar, and Galway led now by 3 points to no score. 10 minutes in and trailing by 2 after their opening score, a Paul White free, Waterford got their first point from open play through Tony Gray, and the gap was down to 1. Danny Cummins put the gap back out to 2 before he had a great chance of a goal. Turning his man but clear in on goal, his shot was saved by Stephen Enright, and Meehan couldn't force home the follow-up. Paul Conroy pointed for Galway to make it 5 points to 2 before Waterford, who played large portions of the game behind the ball, broke out with 3 unanswered scores. The third of those from Paul White levelled up the tie. Galway knew they were in a fight now and knew they had to scrap for every opportunity, and they got back into the lead again a minute later as midfielder Paul Conroy put over a point, and Galway now led by 6 points to 5. And it was advantage tribesmen over the remaining minutes of the half. They outscored Waterford by 4 points to 2 in the remaining minutes of the opening 35, and Meehan got another point just before half-time, and helped by a late Paul Conroy score as well. Galway went to the break leading by 10 points to 7. But rather than throw in the towel, Waterford showed great resolve to get back into the game, and the captain and full forward Gary Herney led by example. This point cut the gap back to 2. Galway were in trouble now, and Waterford had their tails up. They got the deficit to a single point before they levelled 13 minutes into the second half as Paul White scored his 6th point, and the teams were level at 10 points apiece. A minute later, Waterford, hammered by Kerry in the Munster Championship, hit the front as Herney, unchallenged, put over a score left-footed, and Waterford now led by 11 points to 10. That 1 point lead went out to 3, helped by 2 further White points, taking his total at that stage to 7. But Galway dug deep. A Shawnee Armstrong free, their first in 23 minutes, and a point from Michael Martin cut the gap back to 1. But Waterford couldn't just hang on to that 1 point lead. 5 minutes before the final whistle, Galway got the killer goal as Armstrong set up Meehan to blast the ball past Stephen Enright to put Galway back in front. Meehan scoring a total of 1 goal and 5. A late White point cut the gap back to 1, but Waterford couldn't get their last score as Galway clung on precariously to win by a single point. It finished in Salt Hill, Galway 112, Waterford 14 points, a 1 point win for Galway.
Well, we got the result we wanted. We definitely didn't get the performance that we'd hoped for. So look, we managed to get out by a point, and we're happy with that. We were in the pot for the next day.
Worked very hard since the qualifier, or since the Munster semi-final, and I suppose we got a performance today, but it just wasn't enough, and just gutted for the lads inside, you know.
We were up against it there for a long time in the second half. But thankfully we came through in the end. We were 3 points down there for a long time, but fair play to the lads, they dug deep, and thankfully we came through.
We were confident after. We played a good first half against Kerry. It just fell apart a bit in the second half, and then after it just said positivity from here on in. We didn't really care who we got in the draw. We were positive, we were focused on our own game, and just came up that bit short today.
For many GAA supporters, the championship summer wouldn't be the same without Mick O'Dwyer on the sideline. The popular Kerry man took his Clare team to Ennis yesterday for their first outing in the qualifiers. Their opponents were Laois, who overcame Carlow in the first round and who Micko himself managed to Leinster Championship success a decade ago. The Banner County made an encouraging start to proceedings, David Tubridy's point helping them establish a 3 points to 1 lead 9 minutes in. Laois were taking time to settle. Colin Begley's point helped to steady things, leaving Justin McNulty's team just 1 behind. Clare were playing the more assured football at this stage. This the second of 2 points from Rory Donnelly, the current Clare clubman, putting his team 3 points up. Although he was wearing the number 8 jersey, Gary Brennan was operating at full forward. The captain was denied a score here by the crossbar. There was a lot to admire about the way Clare were playing. Right across the field, they displayed a phenomenal work rate, and their movement was good too. Graham Kelly on target as Clare led by 6 points to 2 after 25 minutes. But all the home team's hard work was undone when they conceded a goal close to half-time. Donny Kingston the provider, John O'Loughlin the finisher, and Laois were now in front by a point. The goal gave Laois vital momentum as they scored 1-5 without reply in the closing 10 minutes of the half. Donny Kingston registering a point as Laois led 1-7 to 6 points at half-time. There was no let-up from Laois in the second half. Within 5 minutes of the resumption, they had another goal on the board. Darren Strong providing the pass for David Conway to fire home. 2 goals in 2 games now for the rising star from Arles Kilcrews. The Clare challenge was wilting in the intense heat. The run of Pádraig Clancy wasn't tracked here. He'd plenty of time to get his name on the score sheet. It took Clare almost 17 minutes to score after the break. All bar one of their second half scores came from David Tubridy-Freeze. Laois were really turning on the style now and produced some excellent scores. Darren Strong's powerful run ending with a point. It stretched the Midlanders' lead to 12 points, and the Clare mentors were struggling to figure it all out. And the outcome was put beyond doubt when David Conway played in the long-serving Ross Munnelly, the clubmates combining for Laois's third goal. The last score of the match came in injury time. It was Clare sub Shane Ryan who got it, leaving 16 points between the teams. So again, Laois come good after a sluggish start, winning by 3-17 to 10 points. And while championship success eluded them, the Clare players have been left with memories of a special year when a legend from the kingdom came to manage their team.
Probably it ended up a little bit of a canter, a little bit more so than we expected, we anticipated. However, the opposition's there to be beaten and we went out and beat the opposition.
You've brought great excitement to Clare this year. Is it something you'd like to continue on next year, maybe take the team on another bit?
No, I told him I'd come for 12 months and that was it, so just to fill a gap more than anything. So we let him get on with it now from here. There have a lot of good young players coming through there, so let's hope that things will go well for him in the future.
Well, a great man, Dermot McOdwyer, unquestionably, and literally a legend in Gaelic football. We have said goodbye to him 4 times on this programme before, but you played under him and know about the influence he can bring.
My experience with him it's been amazing. I mean, I was the manager that I made my debut under. The interest he brings to a county is unbelievable. He creates an interest within the county. People that never had an interest in GAA become interested in what goes on. But the one thing that really stood out for him was that he gave you a self-belief. It worked with Kerry, the All-Ireland winners. He did it with Kildare, he did it with Laois. He even worked it with Wicklow when he was there, but unfortunately it didn't happen for Clare.
Yeah, he's some man all right. But what about Laois? I mean, they're moving along quietly, nobody paying too much heed to them, Kevin.
Yeah, and I think a lot of credit has to go to Justin McNulty and the Laois boys, because they've recovered now from the clipping they got against Louth. Their confidence and momentum is building it at the nice Friday night win over Carlow, and now this trouncing of Clare. So they're well back in it, and look, they'll be really looking forward to round 3 draw, because they have real possibilities and they have form. Do you remember last year they beat Meath in one of the late rounds?
Lucky against Dublin.
Went with the name in at Dublin. You remember that was a very fortuitous goal that Dublin got, and that made all the difference in the end. So they have a bit of form in the qualifiers, and I expect them to keep motoring along nicely.
Okay. Now, what about poor old Waterford, Dermot? That was arguably the performance of the weekend. They were so close.
Yeah, I mean, look, coming off, I think it was a 26 points drubbing by Kerry 6 weeks ago. And I've been in the qualifiers myself with a break like that, and it's hard to go training. It is hard to motivate yourself. But they've put the head down, they've worked really hard. And I think they went to Pearse Park, or Pearse Stadium in Galway, full of positive hope. And I think the performance there, and certainly you have to look at Paul White's performance. I mean, he stood out 8 points, 4 points from play, and he really did keep Waterford in it, and almost had them ahead with 6 or 7 minutes to go. But it's positive moving forward. But Waterford really, take the positive from this, but you have to look at getting out of Division 4 and really take today's performance and bring it back to the training ground for next year.
All right, encouraging stuff certainly. But what about Galway? Is there question marks again?
Well, I was sure that the first two qualifier games they got at home, as you know, and the home draw, which was really important in terms of them getting back up on the horse, as we said last weekend. But in fact, the performances have not been what I'm sure Galway expected them to be. So now there are almost more questions now than answers because of those performances. And the key part for it is, even though now they're in round 3 and things look, well, bleak enough for them, but what's coming out of the provincial finals, which will enter at round 4, are not outrageously strong. So round 3 now is a key one, and Galway really will need to build, I would say, they have to draw a serious team in round 3, but at the same time, they'll get really anxious if they do, because their form